I understand the finances, but I understand fire districts and police districts. You paid me a lot of money to work here. I understand it's really expensive, and I know there's a lot of options. When I saw the option of going back to the Troutdale Police Department, I mean, I'd like seeing a car that says City of Troutdale. I like having Troutdale cops there. I was surprised at the staffing level. I think that was my concern. You're talking 1990 staffing levels when there was 7,000 people in Troutdale, 17,000 people in Troutdale. Things are different. Things are different. The things I needed to work in 1995, I wouldn't be able to get by with. They're expensive things that the county has, or the things that Gresham provides. I think it's been mentioned before, you have access to the large pool of detectives, river patrol, SWAT, search and rescue. Something that's new recently is body cams. I know the county's implementing body cams, which really drives your insurance rates down quite a bit. Because this isn't a he said, she said thing when somebody wants to sue the city. I know when initially the City of Troutdale Police Department wasn't accredited, which is something that goes through the state. And it's about a 2-year process. Once you're accredited, your insurance rates really drop. There's not a lot of liability anymore. Sheriff's Office is accredited. I know when you start, I've seen in other places, when you start in a new police department, they don't come in and say, you're all good, you're accredited. It's about a 2-year process, so the rates are really high. So when you're factoring in the money that you're talking about, you're getting over there. The insurance rates, the training budget is, everybody goes to the academy, but that's not it. You need quite a few hours every year, even at patrol level. It keeps certified by the state, and that's everybody. When you're in training for 8 hours, that's 8 hours you're not working. When somebody's sick, that's somebody not working. Somebody's on vacation, that's somebody not working. At the staffing levels you're looking at no coverage, I think. I mean, it's partial coverage. It would be nice if Gresham County said, that's fine, and OSP said, we'll cover it, we'll take everything over for you. I have no doubt they'll show up at a critical incident. That was the detective in 2014 when there was a shooting at Rounds High School, and 200 police officers showed up. And so I get that initial response. A little bit of work after that. Quite a bit of work after that. Just like anything, if there's a fatal car wreck anywhere, they'll show up, right? They'll do what they need to do. The investigative part can take days or weeks. I don't think a lone patrol deputy in Troutdale, even with the supervisor, is going to be able to deal with drug trafficking houses or maybe Motel 6 problems by himself. I know because in 1995, I was that guy. I was that new guy without a big skill set. Nobody else had no supervision, which is again a huge liability. I was literally hoping and praying somebody in Gresham would take my call, because I was covering the entire city. I think it's dangerous to go back to that level of coverage. Frankly, that scares me. Because I still live here. I've always loved living here. I plan on staying here. But I know, all of you, because you volunteer to do this, right? You're not doing it for the fame and the money. But there's a small percentage of the world that are involved in criminal activity for whatever reason. And if they catch on, and they will, criminals don't like to go to places where there's a lot of police. They like to come here because there's 30 cops coming out of that building every day. If they find out that the services are diminished here, that's going to be, global criminals are going to move there. You're going to rob Delhi's at morning. It's going to be this one. It's going to be the one in Gresham. Because there won't be anybody here, or maybe one person responded, and that's concerning. Well, in trying to figure all this out, I don't have all the answers. But I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I get your name?
Is there anybody else that has a comment?
for the opportunity to express my opinion. My name is Terry O'Keefe. I've lived in Gresham since '95. I'm a retired Gresham Police Sergeant with close to 35 years on the job. I always thought the original Troutdale PD was good. I enjoyed the guy. It was a small town attitude. They were approachable and everything else. And those guys are still working for Troutdale, just in a different uniform. So that feeling is still there as a hometown outfit. Then when the sheriff's office took over, I couldn't have been happier with the visibility, whether they're assigned to the district of Troutdale or they're just driving to and fro. The visibility of seeing the squad cars are dramatically increased than it was before because there are more guys. And people don't know whether or not those are patrolling the city or just going to their beat someplace else. But again, the visibility is amazing. Everywhere I go, I seem to see a county car, and I appreciate that. And yeah, the attitude of having just maybe 2 officers assigned to the city, and maybe not even 24 hours, kind of scares me a little bit. Again, the resources that the sheriff's office brings, whether it be assigned to the vehicular crimes team, if you get a fatal crash, I worry about that not being covered here. Whether it be, like Greg said, whether or not you have detectives for a major homicide or crime scene, or even SWAT teams. I mean, the resources that you currently have available through the sheriff's office is unmeasurable. I have a neighbor who's a wee bit bipolar and a doper, and one morning I got up at 6 in the morning and he's out in the cul-de-sac firing a gun in the air. So I call 911 and then he drives off. The sheriff's officer responds with great resources to do a welfare check to make sure he hadn't hurt his family. When they're clearing the house, they're getting ready to leave, this guy comes back and then he confronts the deputies in the street, pointing a gun at them, using his 14-year-old daughter as a shield. 2 officers wouldn't have had the resources to be able to deal with that, and it would have been a while to muster a crew to get together to deal with this thing versus the resources that the sheriff's office had brought that time. It was resolved peacefully, and I truly believe that it wouldn't, or very possibly couldn't, have resolved without somebody's life being taken for that. But again, it's just the resources that the sheriff's office brings. And I also worry about calls for services. If they're non-priority calls, they're going to be holding. If your 2 deputies or 2 officers are tied up on calls, whether it be a domestic, and they have to take somebody to the jail, that leaves 1 in the city, maybe, if he's not tied up or that officer's not tied up. So the coverage is just certainly not there. And low priority calls, if you own a business and someone's breaking into your business, that call may hold until the next shift comes in because your 2 deputies or your 2 officers are tied up on other calls. Somebody breaking into your house, if you're not there, it is no longer, now it's become a property crime, and so it's no longer a priority. So same thing, I'd like to have somebody at my house, but again, that could wait. So I worry about calls for services and response times also with the current plan, and the idea of not having 24-hour service. I mean, working in parts of Gresham was kind of like the Wild Wild West because of the clientele in some of the areas and sometimes a lack of resources. So I'm terrified that would happen out here. Just the element just with the freeway. The freeway that can bring in all sorts of unsavory types at times. I also worry about if it's an issue of wanting ownership. I mean, you can always paint the cars to say Troutdale on it, so you still have that hometown attitude that these are our people, and it's not just the sheriff's office. But I mean, like Clackamas County does with Happy Valley and Wilsonville. There's still deputies driving the cars, but again, people see it is a Troutdale car or it's one of their cars. So at least you still have that ownership that people can relate to. And the other concern that I have is hiring. It obviously takes a long time to get somebody trained. So you're either going to get retired guys who want to double dip for their retirement, like whether it be Portland guys that weren't in PERS and then they come out here and become part of PERS. So that double dipping, or you're going to get a lot of new kids who really want to be police officers, and this is a great opportunity because it's a new start for them. But it's going to take a while for backgrounds, for the academy to get these people up and running. So meanwhile, you've got a guy in a uniform or a person in a uniform, but they're not able to perform and do their job because they still have to be trained. And I guarantee if you guys are not paying a wage comparable to everybody else in the metro area, you're going to end up just being a training ground. Where these people are going to get trained by you guys and hired by you guys to get certified, and then they can go anywhere they want to as a lateral police officer and get more money and benefits for their families, because it's about the family. So anyway, so those are the concerns I have, and like I said, I appreciate you guys taking the time to let people express their opinions on it and doing what you do for the big bucks that they're paying you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Online? Anyone online?
Is there anybody online that has a comment?
Chair,
Yes, Paul?
Chair Alan Paul Wilcox. The first thing I had some comments on the minutes you're approving. Should I hold off on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, I just have a super brief comment on what Mr. Gates was saying about the flashing yellow arrow at Stark and 257th. I'm also very happy that they changed it to a solid green. I was at that meeting where Mr. Gates requested that. I'm surprised it took him 2 years to get that reprogrammed, but it is a lot safer now.
Okay, thank you for commenting and coming.
You have one.
There's more.
Sherry?
Sherry?
Hi there, Sherry Winters, Troutdale. I'm also on public safety and parks in case that matters. I just wanted to say that I appreciate you guys taking comments. I also realize that what I'm hearing, the discussion being that people maybe there's at least a few that are worried about getting rid of the county sheriff. And I do believe that in our previous discussions, the getting rid of is not really what is. The county covers the county no matter what. We all pay into the county to cover us. The extra special stuff that we'd have, it's because everything's becoming so expensive. And at some point, some people can no longer live here if the costs of things keep going up at the rate they're going up. I do believe in safety. And I do believe that having a Troutdale Police Department is a fantastic idea. I also recognize that some of the coverage won't be as good in what we're perceiving anyway. But I also know that it's not feasible to continue on at the rate that what the sheriff has to continue raising the rates. We will no longer be able to afford it. So I do believe it's a good thing to look into our own police department, especially because long term that is the right way to go. But I do, in defense of the county sheriff, I think they're fabulous. I don't have any problems with them. But I also know that we can't continue to afford it. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Right, looks like that's it. And I mean, I do also have to say that, our sheriff's doing an excellent job. All right, so let's go on to number 3, which is minutes. Is there any comments or changes on the minutes? I know Paul had some. Paul?
Okay, thank you, Carol. Paul Wilcox, Troutdale. I just had a couple. These aren't actual corrections to the transcription. I have no reason to doubt that people were quoted accurately, but my issue is a couple of the statements were either inaccurate or confusing. So I'll just refer to those. On page 3, very almost at the bottom, there's a statement that says, Twyla Harrington stated she had looked into assessed values and it said Troutdale's average was about 476,000 and Wood Village was about 275,000. That 476,000 is way, way high. That's more like a market value rather than a tax assessment value. Um, in the budget meetings, Eric Mueller was using 260 as an example, as a sample rate for Troutdale, or sample value, assessed value. So if somebody's using that 476 as an example, they're going to be, and they do the calculation for what a fire district would be or whatever, they're going to be in for quite a shock. 476 would be like a $700,000 market value. And my other comment refers to page 4, about in the middle of the page. It says, my question is being quoted. Right now, we are at $15, but for the amount it is costing us, it's close to $30 to $40. This whole conversation is related to fire. It has nothing to do with police. The current $15 fee generates about 1.4 to 1.5 million. So you'd have to double it to get to 3 million. The way that reads is it's kind of implying that the entire $15 public safety fee is dedicated to fire, which it's not. It's distributed. It's supplemental for both police and fire increases. So I just wanted to point that out. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Is there any other corrections? Statements? Could I have a motion? Rich?
For the assessed value, I don't think we've done an exhaustive study of any kind. I think that's also, I don't know what the real values are. I don't know whether we should try to correct that.
Well, I think it's what Twyla said, but I
It is
think in
what she
budget,
said.
we did talk about it in budget, and Eric had a average assessed value, taxable assessed value of,
It's based on TAZ and census data. Yeah.
which is like, what, 260?
Yeah, he was estimating 260. So.
We can note it, but that's,
Maybe
what she
keep
said.
this as it was stated and then note. I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in there.
You want a motion to adopt the minutes?
Yes, please.
I move we approve the minutes of the February 23rd, 2026.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Right, passed. And then, Mike, you and I talked about switching police and fire.
So just as an update, the board chair and I discussed swapping agenda items 4 and agenda item 5, moving up agenda item 5 in front of agenda item 4. Agenda item 5 was the update on the law enforcement, so we'll have that discussion first.
And what have we found so far regarding the update?
So I was just basically going through a little bit of what our proposal is. I provided in your packet toward the end, just an update on what our budget projections are looking forward, how many patrol officers we're looking at carrying in the Troutdale option. I also included the budget for the limited police, which was part of your budget packets as well. Many of you are already familiar with, some of you are not. As well as a staffing plan on how we might be able to get close to 24/7. Again, there's no guarantee that we can get to 24/7 with what we're proposing. And what we are proposing in this budget cycle is a ramp up, essentially hiring the chief and lieutenant over this next fiscal year and ramping up, in a sense, getting all of our general orders in line, getting all of our policies on, getting our equipment ordered, getting cars equipped, sent down, wrapped, computer equipment, radios, everything ready to go, and then start pulling laterals and potentially sending others to training opportunities and the like. So in our budget this year is really just the hire of the chief, the hire of the lieutenant, and then the prep work that goes into getting ready to then establish the Troutdale Police. So it's probably a multi-year process, and this is just phase one if this is what the council wants to do. So you'll see why we're going that direction on the page that looks like a giant spreadsheet like this. I have the first spreadsheet, and just up front, when we look at the costs, right now in the fiscal year 26-27, the total cost for our public safety is over $10 million. Our tax revenue from the general fund is estimated to be 7.9 million. And so we're looking at a budget shortfall of a couple $1 million, and that's that delta that we use to calculate what the public safety fee covers for police and fire services. And as per the discussion that we had in the budget committee, we're recommending that now at $25 for the next fiscal year. Alternatively, the budget committee recommended that the council consider a $1.60 public safety levy to cover the next 5 years, and we could do that instead of a public safety fee, because the public safety fee looks like it's going to increase every year as we move forward. If we stay under the current contract, that public safety fee could eclipse $60 or more per month for ratepayers. If we go with the public safety levy and go to our own police, then that would be estimated at closer to about $30, maxing out $34 at the end of the 5-year period, or the $1.60 public safety levy to carry us all the way through to the end of the 5-year period. And the 5-year period is the end of our IGA with Gresham Fire. With that, we are seeking, we have District 10 here tonight. They're one of the members of our fire task force, and we'll talk about that after we get through with this particular item. But ideally, and the reason for this is that budget controls and right-sizing our belt, essentially, for what we can afford. If we keep going down the path that we're going, it becomes more and more unsustainable each year financially. So that's what has led us to this point, and collecting comments and perspectives from both the PSEC, PSWAG, and the council, we went ahead and made this proposal for the next fiscal year. And of course, that will depend on if that is the direction the council wants to take it. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. The idea behind the staffing plan is just a rough plan. It just kind of gives us what a 12-officer rotation would look like with the chief and lieutenant, the 2 sergeants, and then your 4 squads of 2 officers. And kind of focuses on where your high call volumes are. Of course, there's probably some flexibility. There's issues with this. I understand if there's court day, if there's training days, if there's vacation, there's going to be shortfalls in the schedule. So understanding all that, understanding that what Multnomah County brings to the table, we called that out also in the budget message on some of the things that we would not have, like we would not have our own detective units. Sergeants and officers would be expected to carry on some of the detective work. We do not have a school resource officer on our own. Currently, that contract is with Multnomah County and Reynolds School District, so that there's no reason to think that that contract wouldn't continue in that current situation. Multnomah County provides, our understanding is Beach Patrol and SWAT, as well as the Gang Enforcement Task Force, as well as major crimes and some other things. Our officers would not have that capability on hand, but as a mutual aid or a resource, they could potentially call on the sheriff's office to assist. We're not saying that this is going to be easy. This is going to be a monumental lift to reestablish the Troutdale Police. this is the first step in doing so, if that's the direction the council wants to take it.
Any questions? Rich?
So this is a working group. Now, when I first heard about the budget portion, my assumption is that was just, you had to have some kind of placeholder or you wouldn't be able to do anything.
Correct.
But I'm not aware that we had discussed any of this before. This is first preview in a working group.
Yep.
Correct? Okay. So no decision's actually been made.
Correct.
Okay. So this is just based on, looking at the budget, this looks, from a budgetary perspective, this looks realistic.
This is what it would take, yeah.
Yeah, at some point, we're gonna have discussions about what level of service do you want? And what's realistic and how much would that cost, and compare it, and where's the difference and how do you make that up? There's a lot of discussion still yet to happen. And I understand that we haven't actually made a decision to go one way or the other. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Ultimately, it's the council's decision, and before I go hiring a chief or a lieutenant, I need clear direction from the council on what they want to do. So that direction needs to come from the council, and that would be kind of point me in the right direction, and I'll see what I can accomplish.
What are we hoping to get out of this meeting?
I'm just sharing information
Okay.
based on prior conversations. It was brought to our attention in budget that, while we discussed this, we haven't really brought it up for a formal discussion before this body. And so we wanted to bring it up, provide you with the information that we're considering, tossing around, maybe get your input, maybe get your recommendation, maybe get a sense of consensus on what direction you want to recommend to the council. We can go from there.
I appreciate, the clarity on what's being thought about so far. And then, it's just the very, very, very beginning. And there's a lot of discussion still yet to happen.
I would just say that I would caution on overgrowing our base. Right? We can always grow once we get a base going, but if we start too large, we're going to outprice ourselves.
Right.
Back into the same boat that we were in previously, I think.
And I understand the ramping idea, just because if you hire too much too fast, you're making decisions you probably shouldn't make. Right. If you want quality, you have to hire well. And so I do like to see strong law enforcement. So one thing that I'm going to be very considerate of is that we don't put ourselves in a bad situation from the county perspective. Somehow, the overall picture. I don't think people care who's responding so much as somebody's responding. So we need a healthy picture across the board. That's it.
Any comments?
After looking through this and then your comment on I realize it's not perfect and there's not 24/7 coverage necessarily. I didn't see any plan in here about covering for all of the agencies of sick, FMLA, at court, all those things. So it looks like, yeah, we could staff this, but the reality is that throughout the week or the month. So what is the plan for offer, I didn't see any numbers of overtime considerations in that, and a big concern I would have is that overtime numbers can jump real fast. And then your budget number, you know what I mean, at the end where you've overspent by easily, over the course of the year could be upwards of $1 million, $1.5 million of unanticipated costs. So where do we account for that in this?
Well, you're assuming if you have to have overtime, right?
Well, I think
So,
if we
mean,
don't have overtime, like, then there's
We would-
nobody on the street.
Right. We would have some overtime, I would imagine, and there would also be the ability to, how much do you want to share? As you dive in, you figure you can potentially re-kick reserve officers, you can tap other resources, you can start growing the department once you have it going. But that being said, you could reduce your staffing, which I don't recommend, but like Greg had mentioned earlier, being the only officer on, not ideal, but you reduce an officer there, and then the backup is you pull from neighboring departments and across the place. So ideally, what I've designed or what we put together was to have 2 officers on at all times with additional supervision, so that adds a third for most periods. Maybe that you have an officer out, so then other officer has to switch their schedule slightly to make that up, or expand hours a little bit here and there to make up those vibes, and that's where your overtime comes in. Ideally, you have it built in where you can adjust the schedule, you can have flex here and there, use comp time as much as possible so that you're not doubling up, but eventually you're gonna get tagged with some element of overtime, and hopefully you can keep that overtime within budgetary parameters. But yes, other times you're gonna be limited on how many are out there. So perhaps instead of having both officers and the sergeant on during that time frame, maybe it's the officer and a sergeant, so then there's your 2 officers there. Or maybe it's the officer and a lieutenant, or 2 officers and a chief or something to that effect. So you have to modify the schedule in order to make amends. Yeah.
And then, my next question is, I think it was brought up before that we pay Multnomah County taxes. We all know that because we see it on our tax statement, which more goes to the county than to the city. So we utilize the county as our police department currently, but we also pay taxes to them, as we've talked about multiple times. What kind of service do we get from the county in the situation where we have our own police department that we are running and paying for? Do we have any idea of any part of the answer to that?
Might not be the best resource on this one. But yes, we get the general administration of the sheriff's office that covers our areas. That also includes the SWAT, major crimes, gangs, all those elements. I think by pitching in or teaming up with Multnomah County, we strengthen that base. We provide an extra leg or leverage or a contract that provides revenue and funds so that they can expand those departments, whether it's major crimes or the detectives or whatever else it is, whatever department or specialty they have. So our contract essentially augments their services. And so I would imagine without our contract, what we might lose is components or strength in some of those departments or strength in their patrol. But it's probably like for like, I'm talking totally not sure how your operation is based, Lieutenant Helmsworth, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But I imagine that certain elements of their overall operations would be affected by Troutdale taking their own police and operating our own patrol. And sheriffs would still have their overall umbrella for policing Multnomah County. But I imagine it might limit some of their resources for some of those major elements. So.
I'm willing to comment. Madam Chair, we wouldn't be considering reconstituting the Troutdale Police Department if it weren't for the financial strain of continuing our contract with Multnomah County. The sheriff has provided excellent service over all the years since they took over patrol. The individual deputies are well liked. I haven't heard negative comments from the public. They'd like to see them more, but frankly, they are around, and I see them, and I believe they've provided us excellent service. It is purely financial. It is not through some nostalgic wish to reestablish a department that says Troutdale on the side of the cars. The sheriff's cars say Troutdale, along with Wood Village and Fairview and Maywood Park, I believe, and other, I don't know all the words on the side of the cars, but that is not what's driving this. It is the finances in 5 or 6 more years, we're going to run out of money, maybe sooner, probably sooner, if we don't at least look at some alternative way of providing police services here in Troutdale. That's what's driving it, not, and frankly, that's the same thing. It's the same with the fire services. Everybody loves our firefighters. They're wonderful, and they provide excellent service. It's finances. We need to look at, we wouldn't be doing our job, looking out for what's best for Troutdale in the long term if we didn't consider reconstituting the police department as one of the options. And the way we're going about it, our city manager is going about it just kind of step by step. We're looking at hiring a chief. The budget committee approved it. The council still hasn't taken it up, but that would be a start at looking at it. But the final decision has not been made. And I heard everything everyone said tonight and many other times, and it weighs heavily, I think, on all of us that we would take such a drastic step, but it needs to be looked at, and that's what we're doing.
Sorry, officially did. I forgot. Sure.
You mentioned, that we pay county taxes, and I think the last time I looked, it was something like 21% of that money would go towards law enforcement, which would mean the jails and the sheriffs and things of that nature of what we were paying. But just, so a couple of things, and I would just echo what Mayor Rittmas said. We didn't get here because of painting a car or nostalgia or anything like that. And everybody's had experiences, some positive, some negative, with the Troutdale police, and they've had the same situation with the county. And I think it's just who you are and the interaction that you have. But we're trying to figure this out because in the last 7 years, this might not sound like a lot, the cost of police service has gone up 63.8%. And our revenue isn't going up 63.8%. But with that said, okay, I'm not a big proponent of a junior police department or a ramp up. I think we have to figure out if we're going to do this, we figure out what it takes and we do what needs to be done. Because, there's always, well, we can afford this, but we can't afford this. Technically, you can afford what you choose to afford. There's mechanisms, whether I agree with them personally or not, of charging for whatever to get whatever. I'll just say that. I do want to say a comment on the savings line. We've got the cost of that going up at 3% a year, and I think that's unrealistic. I think it's going to be more like 6 or 7 at least. So I don't think we're quite going to have the buffer there that we intend to have. You know, I think the officers for the county do a great job, and I'll just have to say that when the county dwells out their money and they spend over $120 million more on homeless services than they do on law enforcement, it just confuses me, just as a citizen, sorry. I think it makes it harder on everybody.
Was Wood Village and Fairview interested in maybe joining us like they are on fire?
Yeah, Fairview is facing a real issue, I think, at the end of their contract. And right now, they're in a worse position than we are financially. Their city manager has mentioned to me on other occasions that by the time he pays the Multnomah County contract, they're basically out of tax revenue. And then paying Gresham again on top of that puts them immediately like $2 million upside down out of everything that they have. So they are in an unsustainable position as well for when their contract runs out, potentially at the end of, I think it's like July or August next year. So there is a possibility there that we can make a IGA or some sort of group effort on that front. That might add, I think he said he might have something like $1 million or 1.5 that would potentially add if they want to team up with us. So we're talking completely hypothetical crystal ball. If they wanted to team up with us on that front, then you could potentially add another sergeant, more officers, potentially add to your base. So there is that possibility. I don't know if that's the direction they want to go, or if they're just going to renegotiate their deal with Multnomah County. I have no idea.
Carla? Yes, thank you. Thank you for these numbers. I think it helps create a picture of why we're having this conversation today. I wanted to add to Tanny's discussion point. Working in healthcare, one of the things that makes you feel and know everything's okay is that you have good staffing and you can rest easy knowing that people are taken care of. And I think of wondering about going to bed at night and wondering what is the level of staffing in the community. And as a resident, that really resonates with me. You want to know that you can rest easy because people are out there patrolling, and know that's consistent and happening all the time. So that's my thoughts on that.
I just need for clarification, the spreadsheet that we have here, is that representing comparable pay and benefits for the area, for the types of positions that are listed?
See, I think that's, for our area, yes. For a city of our size, yes. Our comps are gonna be more like Canby, Malala, Sandy. Those are gonna be our comps. I think that's one of the price differences here, and one of the cautionary tales that we had one of the members of the audience say is that being a smaller city of 16, 17,000 people, we can't necessarily afford the same wages that a Portland can, or a Gresham can, or a Multnomah County can. And so our wage scales are not gonna be Portland level, they're not gonna be Gresham level. So yes, in a lot of ways, there will be a training ground aspect, and also a small town aspect here. So we might get poached. I imagine we will get poached. As with any smaller police department, some trainee or whoever is going to come in, cut their teeth on it, learn the ropes, and then they're going to get drawn away and pulled into a higher paying gig with a larger agency.
Well, considering that, you know, where we sit as a city and that we have mutual aid agreements, it would be nice for decision-making if we could also see what these numbers look like with comparable numbers and benefits, or what is the likely competition right in this area.
You mean like comparables, like salary comparables from,
And benefits, when you're making a decision as to where you're gonna work.
if you look on the last
Where are
page,
you gonna work there?
look on the last page of your packet, that's what they're paying.
Okay, so just compare the two. I normally look at
And
the
then-
future too of what I know is coming.
Yeah, if you look at theirs and then kind of go into the budget, the limited budget that we're proposing, kind of see what the differences are.
And that's theirs today, right?
That's our contract currently.
Yeah, and we're projecting out.
So the one on the back is what they were charging, just add the 10%. So that's where we're at today.
I'm just trying to make the comparisons.
I'd say we're gonna be, we would have to stay below where Portland or Gresham or Multnomah County can afford. Don't have that kind of budget. That's part of our
Maybe
problem.
not, but we are competing for the same officers, so we should at least know what those numbers are.
And we do that when we do like union negotiations and things of that nature. We compete with cities of similar size in similar region. Unfortunately, what happens in Multnomah, or not Multnomah County, but in metro region as a whole, is we have big city problems, little city budgets. So that really kind of makes it challenging for police officers because they have big city problems, but they're not necessarily getting the same big city pay. So that's the struggle. And that's why it's difficult to maintain and hang on to officers if you're in a smaller police force. That's why they get poached.
That decision hasn't been made. Having information helps us make those decisions.
Yeah, I just wanted to one, echo what Mayor Ritma had to say. I think it's really important. He also said in our budget committee, something that was really important is that citizens pay taxes and they have expectations for those things. So there's little things that happen within our city that still need to happen and that they deserve to have, like nice parks, nice streets. The equipment that the city buys needs to be well taken care of so it lasts longer, and we're very aware of those items. I think that this conversation is one we don't want to be having, but we're taking very seriously. And there's, like Mayor Ritma said, it comes down to money. And since I've been doing this, you get to see how much money the city has for this type of service. So our safety services come out of our general fund, which are driven by our property tax revenue. And those revenues have been outpaced by inflation, whether we like it or not. That's the main fact of why we're in one of the positions that we are. We have been working diligently over the last few years on trying to come up with options of how to combat this situation. And the reality is that we all will be paying for this one way or another, unfortunately. And the reason that we're here is not necessarily as important as how do we get out of the situation that we're in so we can be a financially solvent city. So we've been working on things like this public safety fee, which while annoying and maybe hard for some families, is essential to help make sure that we have public safety. So both our police and fire contributes to that. Does this number go to the general fund? Yes, but that's where our police services come from. And we see it increasing on these every year. And so, is it better to charge this public safety fee, increase it every year, so we have these services for us? Is it better that it go to the voters to vote on how much they want to spend to contribute to it? And does that number match what the citizens want? We've also been talking, and we will talk later, about joining and creating or getting into a fire district. And joining a fire district obviously offloads that cost from the city and provides more resources within the general fund for the city to provide those services. So if we were to offload that and have a fire district, does that allow us to have the police department that everybody kind of described tonight that they want to have? They want to feel extra safe. And I mirror those concerns. But at the end of the day, regardless of anything, it's us that will be paying for this. And we, as a group, and then as a council, have to decide how we want to present that to the people for the citizens to decide. And I think that I will refer to the Champion article that Mike put out as a really good way to just kind of illustrate the position that we're in and the decisions that need to be made. Hard decisions by council, but hard decisions by the members of this community. Whether we like them or not, this is the situation that we're in. And we have to decide the best way to move forward for each one of us. And that whole is the city and how it runs. And I will just end this by saying, in my 4th year of being on here and doing this, the city is very responsible with its money. Very responsible. I see it every day when I'm walking in the parks, on the street. I see it in these committees that we're participating in that people care. They want what's best for the community with what resources we have. So I just want to echo again Mike's article that he put out and Mayor Ritma's statement. It just comes down to money, and we can't afford more than what we can afford. And that we're looking how to best utilize those resources to provide the best possible situation for the community as a whole.
Is there any other discussion? All right, let's go ahead and bring up fire, please.
Madam Chair, at the last East County Fire Task Force meeting in Gresham, we heard from District 10 on what their proposal to annex into their district might look like using their permanent rate. The District 10 permanent rate is $2.85 per thousand. They built a model based on that. In that model, it starts right after the minutes in your packet. I apologize that you get my handwritten notes on there because I only had my copy, and so you get to see my internal thoughts as we progress through that. We do have a couple gentlemen here from Fire District 10 as well. Ultimately, I thought the fire district proposal was well put together. I like their staffing plan. I like that they came in under budget. Their budget was, $10 to $12 million cheaper than what Gresham was putting together. Some of the numbers that came in from the Gresham proposal originally put the cost at $3.73 per thousand. Another came in at $4.76 per thousand. When I'm thinking about trying to move Troutdale into a fire district, every cent per thousand is another step further away from us actually getting into a fire district. So for me, I'm looking for the most cost-effective, best performance, cost effectiveness. That's what I'm looking for in these proposals. I thought District 10 made a decent proposal on how they would get there. I think District 10 has a couple options to provide that might improve Troutdale's position. Particularly, they have a few capital assets. They have the fire station up off of Orenco, the Troutdale Fire Station, the training grounds off of Halsey. They have a couple engines and a brush hog, I think. But ultimately, District 10 seems to be a pretty good option as you go through this. I think the big difference between the District 10 proposal and the Gresham proposal so far has been the admin costs and the size of the admin staff. When you look at their admin staff, I think it's pretty thin. So I have to add some costs in there for additional admin components to equal it out. But overall, I thought that they came in with some reasonable numbers here that seem to compute, at least in my initial take.
I'll echo that. I would think another important aspect, besides the decreased admin, was their emphasis on boots on the ground. And they made what really stood out to me was having four-man engines, crews, and that would, again, more people doing the job, I think was a real big thing that stuck out to me. I really appreciate that. Also, it's not that, I know when the city of Gresham does this, it doesn't come from a fire perspective. And at least the presentation we got was from someone who's actually done the job and has those insights. And so I really appreciated that, those points that were made from their presentation.
And I would just say some of the savings that they had were in training, because they were talking, like what Councilor Owen was saying, boots on the ground training. So each fire station does a significant piece of their training. So I felt like they had saved some money in their proposal on their training budget. I think there were some capital asset aspects when we look at the additional 2 fire stations that we were calling for in the enhanced model. So there's 2 models. There's the base model, what we have today, which is 6 1/3 fire stations, I think. And then there's the enhanced model, which is 8 1/3 fire stations, with additional fire stations, one here near Wood Village Fairview, which would decrease response times, and another over in Pleasant Valley area toward the southeastern portion of Gresham, right?
Hogan Cedar neighborhood, which would be like way up towards Persimmon, Palmquist, Palmblatt, that area, that's Graydon Park, the new park in Gresham, somewhere in that general southeast area.
So that would be the enhanced model at the 8 1/3, and so that's where the numbers came in my book. A large difference between what District 10 was proposing versus what Gresham was proposing, and those costs are roughly a $12 million difference on some of that stuff. So we have 2 representatives here from District 10 that could probably chat with you a little bit if you wanted to bring them up. Go through the slides that they provided. When we first started, I'll be honest, they were going over call data and other information that I questioned the relevancy of why we were covering that information, other than trying to figure out what response units need to be available and how many units it takes to get to a call or a response. So I think there were some pros and cons to that. Ultimately, I was pretty happy with the numbers that came out because it felt like it was more in line with where our budget goals are, rather than the numbers that I got from the 2 numbers that we got from Gresham. So with that, I also included a presentation that was given to the Gresham City Council Now, my understanding was, and the mayor corrected me on this, and maybe I'm wrong, but when Eric Schmidt gave the presentation to Gresham Council on what the different options were, they had talked also about Clackamas 1. And I think that there's some mixed reviews on the Gresham Council on whether they like the Clackamas 1 option or if the Clackamas 1 option is even worth exploring. I still think that it is worth exploring. I hope that we get a presentation from Clackamas 1 in the near future, because then we can bring apples to apples comparisons of all three potential options, which is a 4-district option with Gresham and the 3 cities, 3 additional cities, or we go with District 10, all 4 of us, or all 4 of us go to Clackamas 1. And so I would personally like to see what those options look like, and hopefully we get an apples to apples comparison to what something similar to what District 10 brought to us this last time. You're welcome to go through the Gresham proposal. Mr. Wilcox had sent an email, I think, to the council and recommended that you watch with the link to their work session. I have not had a chance to because I've been sick all week, so I apologize for not being able to catch up on the Gresham City Council presentation, but I heard it was a pretty good one, full of some really good information. So I wanted to make sure that you had that presentation and those slides, and happy to answer any questions that this committee might have.
I don't recall any of this in the meetings that we've had, but has there been any discussion about how, if we were to hypothetically join Fire District 10 at the proposal they gave, how they acquire or how Gresham's fire resources are given out or divulged or sold off, or however that works? Has there been any?
There was some discussion on that in the early part of the, also I think it was part of the AP Triton study that the 3 cities did.
I think the realistic proposal was that Gresham would also join Fire District 10.
Yeah. But then they would
provide all the services for Fire District 10.
But then all of and I could be totally wrong, but I would like, if they have all these trucks, engines, rescues, and then they have these buildings, do they just stay the property of City of Gresham, or is Gresham just loaning them to? I mean, I realize like the people of Gresham, like they own it, they've built this up, but I didn't know if there was gonna have to be a monetary transfer of money from a district to acquire that, or you guys might have more insight into that, and you can come.
We had that discussion when Gresham tried to join Fire District 10, 10 years, 15 years ago.
Okay.
Those assets belong to the people that Gresham already paid for them, and they're going to continue to serve them.
Yeah.
You would be actually charging them again for something they already paid for.
Sure. Yeah.
So I had that discussion with one of the city councilors in Gresham. He said, we've got our assets we've been letting you use, and so everybody that was served by those facilities would continue to be served. Basically, you're just changing the phone number in the office.
Well, I think what you're getting at is if only the 3 cities came in District 10, those assets would stay in Gresham, right? Yeah. But if all 4 come in District 10, there's a division of assets, like we had in 1984, the division of assets between Fire District 10 back then, with the city of Troutdale and, city of Gresham and the city of Portland, where there were certain assets that were transferred to Gresham to Portland, and the only thing District 10 retained was essentially Troutdale and Orient, and all the rest of the assets were given to the other 2 cities. So there'd just be another division of assets again coming back if this new fire district came to fruition.
If I hear you correctly, you don't think that there's like a monetary transfer, like, and I just say that because your budget is this, would you expect in that first year that you're gonna need to spend more money because they have these assets? I don't know.
With this proposal, those assets should transfer, but this would be something for conversation, more in depth, more granular level.
Yeah.
So you got the things like PERS liabilities too, right? There's other assets and their liabilities are going to be involved in this process, so.
If the city of Gresham didn't join District 10, but all the other three small cities, there was 4 entities that joined, they could keep those assets and it would be mutual aid, and using them just like we give mutual aid back to them. But our proposal not only was that much less money, but we're having 2 additional stations with 2 paramedics. 85% of the calls are medical calls. So, we've said for years, we thought that the District 10 for all 5 entities would be best. We never had the numbers until now.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just, to follow up, I mean, the hard decision is to form a new district or join District 10 either way, and form that entity. The allocation of the assets, suitable, equitable arrangements can be worked out if the hard decision is made to form a district. That's really the hard one. The asset distribution, well, it'll have to be fair to everybody, and it would be done. I'm confident that would happen. It's, the hard part is getting the district.
Would be like having a new district. All 5 entities would be represented, and the structure of that would be done by those 5 entities. If you
would work out.
District 1, Clackamas, they're the guys that are gonna structure what you're getting. And I think that was one of the things that both Dave and I came up with, is that there would be local representation. And it's not like that wasn't before District 10 had all 3 cities in it for I don't know how many years, but we started in 1943. And it was just, it's too late to play the blame game of why people, District 10, but we see the result, and you got to deal with it.
The good news of the fire district might, like I said, free up some money in your budget to enhance your police services or get it back up to maybe the level that sounds like the community wants too. That would free up $3.5 million what you're paying to Gresham currently. So that's a lot of walking around money to keep your police services at a
Really,
level.
the hard part is 5 jurisdictions need to vote to do District 10, or 5 jurisdictions need to do. I don't think it would be difficult unless all 5 entities came together to afford to do it. I don't think you can do it too much any other way and still afford it. But the thing that I mentioned at the meeting we had with the task force is our proposal isn't the end of what is possible. What it is the beginning, but I think you have to, at some point, you're in an airplane, it's running out of gas, and you're gonna get on the runway. So, but, just like I've told Mike and Dave, our administrative costs for our district this last year, we have 2 part-time CPA women who do our administrative. Total cost was $27,000 for 2 people. And so I think that what we're looking at is to minimize the administrative costs, get more firefighters and paramedics on the street, and give you more for less money.
Some of the innovative things we've gone to is like what Mike had mentioned earlier, is a station-based training program and shifting 40-hour, we call staff positions, back to the line to put boots in the ground, add a 2nd battalion chief on duty to do that, so we meet NFPA 1710 standards. So we've gotten very innovative how we're going to provide this service and do it for less money and come in on budget on time. Look forward to maybe in the future meeting one-on-one with Mike and going over more granular level with it. But
It really goes down to, we want to cut response time minimum that can be gotten. And whoever is in trouble and needs fire and emergency department, they don't care what it says on the door. They just want you there. And I think unless you really look at what the options are and it's possible to get it to the point where you really want it to be.
Just a comment, I like where you're going with this. If it does go District 10 with Gresham involved in that, my preference would be that lock, stock, and barrel, those fire stations continue to serve Gresham and also move over to District 10. It seemed cleaner that way. As you mentioned, there's assets and liabilities attached to that.
Yeah, but you're gonna get that, you're gonna get 2 more stations as well.
Right. Right, so better service in this area. See, I don't think Gresham's really been involved in investing in this area because it wasn't theirs.
The one thing I'd say too about contracting with another fire district or joining another fire district, especially contracting, the problem you're in now is because you contracted with Gresham. You know, they'll give you a good deal at the beginning, but as 20 years goes by, you know, you're still at the mercy of a contract.
It's like renting. At the end of it, you still don't own anything.
Yeah, Dave and I are getting old, we want to retire.
So then how that works, right, is that you've got Fairview, Troutdale, Wood Village, and then Clackamas 1 and Gresham, is that the 5?
So Gresham and
District 10.
District 10,
not Clackamas.
because Clackamas isn't wanting, they're their own.
Not the proposal, though. Clackamas.
There are essentially 4 different options. We can stay in Gresham. We can create a new district that is all 4 cities, Gresham, and 3 of us. We could join Fire District 10,
Should be the 5.
or we could join Fire District 1. Those are your 4 options.
So then if Gresham decides no, and the 3 cities want it, it's another option.
It's still an option.
It's still an option because we would be the taxing authority for your fire department, and that'd be up to this board, which would be, once again, from this community, would be the 3 cities in the rural area. Would you have this board, they'll make a decision at that point. Do they contract with Gresham? Do they contract with Clackamas? Or do they start their own fire department on day 1? So it's still, the beauty of it is it gets it off. Like you guys, I know you have more fire and police to worry about. You got streets, you got parks, you got community livability. There's a lot of issues. We focus on one thing only, strictly fire department, nothing else. And so this governing body, whoever it would look like, they would make these decisions, long-term strategic decisions on where to go. If for some reason Gresham were to bail or not come in.
Well, I think it's really important that Troutdale has a say, and I think that's, for me, that's the same with fire, and it's the same with police. We don't have a say on either one. If we need something from Multnomah County, it's up to them. I mean, they don't follow Troutdale what we want, they follow what Multnomah County wants, correct?
But we're still the contract holder. We can still call and ask.
But
Yeah.
overall,
It's ultimately there.
we don't really have a say in either one. And I think it's important especially that we have a say. We have, we have people coming to us and, we don't have a say.
Remember Chip O'Neill always said all politics is local.
Don't forget that the voters have the final say on us joining a district, whatever district. Right now, the task force is trying to figure out the best value for the money that we have to form a district. You might recall that Troutdale, Wood Village, and Fairview were prepared to join Clackamas 2 years ago. And suddenly Gresham started backpedaled and said, well, maybe we ought to be involved in the discussions, and that's where we are, and we want them involved. And but in the end, the voters of Troutdale and each other city, frankly, will have to vote to join a district if we're going to. And as far with police, if we do a public safety levy in Troutdale to replace the fee that has already been discussed, that also will be a vote of the voters of Troutdale. So they're gonna have a say, no question.
To Mayor Rittman's point there, Fire District 10 has a very good reputation in this area, and so do the Gresham firefighters. So it seems like that's an additive benefit when you're presenting it to the voters.
I'm thinking the only way, this is just Ripma saying what I think the only way that we can convince the voters, because the voters are gonna have to be willing to vote for more taxes. Always a tough sell. In Troutdale, a very tough sell. It's a tough sell for all of us. The only way it's gonna work is if all the cities are on the same page. Firefighters themselves, the unions, everybody gets behind it. Even then, it might take a couple years. But it's not gonna work any other way.
That's the second part of the equation. First, you want to join District 10, whatever you do, but then you're going to have to convince the voters. And to do that, one of the things we're looking at is cities who have gotten into a fire district. What would it take for the voters to be aware of the situation and get them to vote to do it? But I would, my sweet wife, was county commissioner for 8 years, and she got the county commission to go out to vote for the library, to form a library district. And it won 70-30, because people like their libraries. People also like their firefighters. So we've got that on our side, but we've got a lot of work to do to get them to do it. And in District 10, we've got to vote to accept you guys. Besides that, right now, it's a wonderful feeling to have a budget with money left over at the end of the year. And that's the way we've been for several years. And the other thing I think some people aren't aware of, both Tualatin Valley and Clackamas County both have their tax base and a levy that they have to renew on a basis. So if you join District 1, you're also taking their levy, and you're going to have to vote on their levy. So that's the one thing we said about District 10. We think if all 5 entities joined it, hopefully we wouldn't be going out for a levy for a long time, and maybe never. But I said we've always been thinking about 3 or 4 years in anything we do. I'd like to think about 30 years, so our kids and our grandkids didn't have to worry about nobody coming when you called them.
Right, the 5th entity is District 10, right?
Yes.
Just for clarification.
We actually bought a new fire truck this year because we had money left over.
And I think it's, just from my perspective, anything that we do talk about or agree on, there has to be that increased service. So the extra 2 stations have to be a part of it. That's why it was great just to see like, this is, where you just do this, that was part of it. And just for me, I would not agree to anything unless it's an increased level of service to our community as a whole.
Yeah, we put 7 more firefighters on duty per day in the same service area for less money.
And I want to tell you, Dave really understands organizational stuff for fire. I mean, I didn't know until Dave that 25% of the time our district's fire stations 76 is out of service in training. And I don't know, maybe it's...
Well, I found out too from the you 2 gentlemen with Gresham, or 3 gentlemen last week, when they talked, they call it cross something, like I've written down my notes, but basically it's called response reliability. And their numbers are staggering how low they were for response reliability. That's kind of part of our plan, is with 4-person crews for half of the busier companies, that keeps from sending 2 fire apparatuses on a call, which keeps in service more, able to respond quicker, shorter response time. So we really thought this out to a granular level, how we're gonna make this work.
Station 76, our little station out here, gets about 500 calls a year. Station 71 at Gresham City Hall gets 6,000 calls a year.
Well, it would be my definite recommendation that we have like town hall meetings meetings so that it gives the community time to come and ask questions and have people here and don't know what's going on with both fire and with police. And I know with fire, I mean, the response time will be a lot quicker, and especially over across the river, so that'd be important. Okay, Joe?
No, I like this proposal. I'll just say it was disappointing when Gresham was 373. And gonna have a $160 million capital bond, and none of it was going to Troutdale. There was no increase, no change in service at all. So I think that in itself would be very difficult to convince citizens that they should do it.
Any other comments?
Let's set the next meeting.
I just want to make sure everybody's covered on comments, so.
Totally agree.
All right, let's set. Time for the next meeting. So it'd either be the 15th of June or the 22nd of June. If we're looking about a month away.
The 15th would kind of work better for me. My significant other has a school board meeting on the 22nd. So we'd be doubled up.
15th works for me.
Good.
You're out of town? Okay.
I'm sure you're going somewhere that has Zoom.
Eventually.
Does the 15th work for you, Twyla?
You will have a new representative at that time from our committee.
I thought we were continuing to keep the committee intact.
Which is what?
So we have new.
That's a sentence.
So Rich just brought up, like tomorrow's is committee election, and Twyla just said there'd be a new representation.
I don't think this committee gets considered in this election.
I'm not sure.
Oh,
This is a
I'm
different-
coming off the committee that I am serving.
I think we're trying to keep this intact because it's such a long process.
Yeah, we don't want to lose you, Twyla.
Over and over and over.
I just wasn't, I'm happy to continue. I wasn't sure. I thought it was associated with the other.
I think we can work it out. It is,
Okay.
it is and it isn't, but we can work that out.
I will be out of town on the 15th, but
All right, well, we'll figure out something.
Okay, all right, so June 15th,
All right.
I guess, I mean, we got.
At 6:30.
Victoria, are you available?
I'm
You're
out.
not, so let's do
Graduation trip.
5 of us,
Okay,
right? Are you available, Tammy?
I'm available.
Okay.
same here.
All right, so June 15th at 6:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh,
I just want to share one thing. We've talked a lot about costs. And we've talked about the future a little bit. And I just ran this. This is basically what's happened over the last 6 years. So it's kind of a little bit of telling us how we got here. And the top line is the police contract starting in FY 2021 and goes through this year, and it's how much it's gone up in the percentage. And then the next one down that's in pink is the fire contract, and what that's done. And then the last one is the general fund. So like for police, it included the community resource officer and BOEC and did not include code enforcement because that's in the general fund number. General fund includes payroll and materials and services. Likewise would police and fire both. Okay.
That's why your comment earlier,
Pardon me?
that's why your comment earlier on what to expect on growth.
Right.
I know that was,
Police is our number one at 32%.
Right, but that's the percentage of the general fund, but the increases, police has been 63, fire's been basically 46, general fund's been 85, the total's been 68 over those years. And so that's kind of along with what Mike is saying, you know, it's just, revenue's not gonna meet that number.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
that was impressive.